Okay, so if you were not in class, then you missed out on the notes that go into this chart. So we're talking about the Columbian Exchange. In class, we watched two clips from the video America Before Columbus. It is in the playlist, so I hope you watched these two clips as well. And now that you've watched those two clips, now we can go through the chart together. So the first thing we see is horses. Horses are brought over from the Eastern Hemisphere into the Western Hemisphere. And one impact that they have is that indigenous tribes now begin to use horses for transportation. And it has a big impact on their day-to-day lives, but also on their culture, right? Horses become an important part of many First Nations cultures as a result of the Columbian Exchange. Okay, next we have pigs. They also travel from Eastern Hemisphere to Western Hemisphere. And when they arrive in the Americas, they are a big deal. So they spread, they multiply like crazy, and they wreak havoc on the local ecosystems, as well as wreaking havoc on the corn crops of Aboriginals. Next, we have old world diseases, which are enormously impactful. They travel from the Eastern Hemisphere to the Western Hemisphere, and they lead to massive depopulations of indigenous peoples. So according to the video, it's believed that somewhere around 90% of indigenous people of the Americas die as a result of old world diseases. Next, we have plants that are indigenous to the Americas. So plants like corn, potatoes, tomatoes, pumpkins. Europeans take those plants from the Americas and bring them back to Europe with them. And those generally have a very positive impact on the lives of people in Europe, allowing people to have access to more food and leading to fewer people dying of famine or dying of hunger, rather. So this leads to a population explosion in Europe. The population of Europe goes up, up, up very fast. Okay, but Europeans also bring something deadly with them back to Europe after traveling in the Americas, and that is syphilis. Now, this is a sexually transmitted disease that was in the Americas, but Europeans brought it back to Europe, and it caused much pain and much death among people that it infected. Okay, next we have European settlers. So these are people who travel from the old world to the new world looking for a place to live. And so their presence and their creation of colonies leads to deforestation, leads to the depopulation of fish and animals. It also causes them to build fields, right? So big plantations for their crops. And also they bring animals with them that really start to encroach more and more on the natural environment of the Americas. So the settlers bring with them old world plants and animals so that they can create farms. And those travel from east to west, and they transform the land. So the land is no longer natural in the same way that it was before. It becomes domesticated, right? It becomes controlled by humans. And so this land in the Americas now becomes domesticated for use by the settlers for their fields, for their crops. And also, accidentally, these settlers bring with them some invasive species. They bring some weeds, and they will devastate the American ecosystem. Okay. European settlers also bring honeybees with them, right? So they will travel from east to west, and that allows for plants to be pollinated and really, really helps the farmers with their plantations, right? So as a result of this, farmers start growing bigger and bigger fields and they become plantations. Next, we have sugar. So this is an old world plant. Sugarcane is transported to the Americas, and so they realize that they can grow sugar really well in the Americas, and so they start to build big plantations in the Americas in which they grow sugar. And then tobacco, which is indigenous to the Americas, they realize that a lot of Europeans enjoy smoking tobacco. And so they will grow some massive plantations. And then they start to import people from Africa to use them as slaves in these plantations, right? And so enslaved people will start to work in tobacco and sugar plantations, growing these crops so that they can be exported to Europe to be sold to Europeans. Okay, so these are all legacies of historical globalization. These are all ways in which Historical globalization, especially the Columbian exchange, impacted the lives of people and also impacted the environments of both Old World and New World. So I hope you learned a few things.